my slide presentation. Well, Akaroa, or Banks Peninsula, has had a wonderful summer. I'm just absolutely amazed at the number of locals that you actually see. Locals, people living in the bays, actually down swimming this year. It's been amazing. They've all welcomed the high tides, even at Pigeon Bay. We've seen a little bit of surfing on the, with kids surfing on the tide. It's been great. Freedom camping continues to be an issue with our Banks Peninsula community. I'm delighted to see that we have some meetings organised and that moving forward to resolve those issues. We have a very vigilant community. The cruise ships have gone reasonably well. There will be issues that we're addressing with a number of groups and things, but life seems to be pretty comfortable in Banks Peninsula. We're enjoying the fine weather, and we look forward to what might happen over the next few days. Perhaps civil defence might be required, but anyway, we'll all be ready to go because Civil Defence Group meet regularly. So I just want to talk about a couple of things, good things that are going on. And social housing in Akaroa is it's an exciting development that's underway. We're replacing these old units, which are in very poor repair, on quite a large section, with 5 new ones. We've been a long time waiting. And for Akaroa, having some social housing, we've got a rest home, we've got an integrated family health centre, we've got a whole lot of things, social housing as well. So it means that our community is fairly well sustainable, resilient, and how a small rural community should be operating. So we're delighted to see that moving forward, and that will be happening shortly. So just I'd like to say in relation to that the new integrated family health centre that's being built with the District Health Board is the first sods in the ground are being turned on the 24th of February. So there will be there will be invitations for anyone that's interested in coming along and joining us on the old hospital site. But it's exciting for us in Akaroa to see that these projects are all coming together. So the next one is about another Reserve Management Committee, and this Reserve Management Committee also, they had a bit of funding allocated from the City Council for a boardwalk and a car park. It has just been completed. It's absolutely delighted. Well, the Reserve Management Committee is delighted, but the community is delighted too. A great spot, and you should all be going to have a look at it. It's just off the main highway. And it's got some interpretation boards on it. It's all good stuff, so it's wonderful. The next one is about the Rod Donald Trust. Now you should all know about the Rod Donald Trust and its focus on Banks Peninsula walks, that you will have all had information. It is a council-controlled organisation, so you should know all about it, and Andrew is a trustee of that organisation. But this is about them, the Rod Donald Trust, working with the board to look at how we can actually support them and what they're doing going forward. It provides, there's no doubling up on where the walking tracks might be or whatever it is. It's actually working together in harmony in a collaboration to complete a number of the walks. And you can see a number of the ones that they're working with. They're part of City Council ones as well, so it's we're looking at working with them. And then also included in there, we've put the we have their strategic goals should be in there somewhere, but perhaps we might have missed that off. That we did actually include in our little overheads that about that. But we do welcome the opportunity of working with the Rod Donald Trust. We did have the Rod Donald Trust strategic goals included in the last bit, but it's obviously dropped out. So then we move on to the next one. Next one? We've resolved the Allendale Reserve. I think we've lost the picture up the top. Anyway, it's all about our two Part A issues. We've done the Allendale Reserve. The other one is the International Maritime Labour Convention. And the board is looking for a way to move forward, a path to resolving these issues. So you've got the paper in front of you, and Andrew, would you take us through this? We've got the paper and the recommendations on it.
So we're dealing with this Part A now? Yep.
Yes. Is that right?
Before we get to the Part A,
right.
Any questions for Pam?
Right. Okay, sorry.
No?
No. Right.
The other Part A, but it's not
So Pam, you're happy for me to speak to
Yes,
this
I'm very
one?
happy for you to introduce it. I'm standing in for Christine today, and of course it's in Littleton, so a Littleton focus.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. So just some background information really for councillors. The Littleton Seafarers Centre is a voluntary organisation. It's based on Norwich Quay in Littleton, currently sited in a building which is on land which has been made available by independent providoring, independent fisheries, and it provides services to seafarers, welfare services to visiting seafarers, is currently only open 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, and that's in a context obviously of a port that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with large numbers of shipping visiting the port, and obviously seafarers on those ships who are requiring access to welfare services, and in particular the ability to contact their families while they're ashore and so on. A number of these seafarers are from overseas countries, and typically poorer, often Asian countries. It wouldn't be unusual to see, particularly in the winter months, seafarers huddled around our Littleton library using our council Wi-Fi in freezing conditions and driving rain in the dark. There have been a couple of examples in the last 2 years, one quite recently, of seafarers who have been killed. And that also demonstrates the clear need for welfare services and local services on shore in Littleton. So the Maritime Labour Convention has been ratified, signed up to by government. There are a number of clauses in the Maritime Labour Convention that are relevant to the matter that we're considering today. Regulation 4.4, that each member shall ensure that there are shore-based welfare services that are accessible, seafarers have access to adequate facilities and service, and that a technically competent person is employed at a welfare centre. In relation to who's responsible for providing welfare facilities, the Convention suggests that these should be provided by one or more of public authorities, ship owners or voluntary organisations. And in terms of funding, the Convention suggests that grants from public funds or levies on shipping or other dues from shipping would be appropriate forms of funding. So really the questions for us in Littleton, and questions that the Community Board wrestled with in dealing with this in its meeting, what seafarer welfare services should Littleton have, and in particular is what's provided currently appropriate, who's responsible for providing them, and we're fortunate to have volunteers and the Seafarers Centre there in Littleton, but realising that they're constrained because of the amount of volunteer labour that's available, and also constrained because of funding, and who should fund them. And the issue that was put in front of the Community Board was that an appropriate way of funding would be a levy on shipping. So essentially the employers of the people requiring the welfare services contributing to their onshore welfare. Now, the port have made a small contribution, a $5,000 contribution to the operation of the welfare centre. I think it's fair to say that the Seafarers Centre would value the opportunity to further engage with the port to see whether a better funding regime that resulted in a greater level of funding could be achieved. And obviously this has come to us at Council with some legal advice alongside around whether we've got a legal or a moral obligation. We obviously as Council are not a signatory to the Maritime Labour Convention. I'd like to see us obviously take the advice from staff, but then in the context of that advice, look at what positive steps we could take to ensure better outcomes for our visiting seafarers to Littleton, looking at how we can support the Seafarers Centre to achieve their objectives in the context of the issues that we've heard about this morning.
I'm just sending through some suggested.
So I've just emailed it to everyone that I emailed it round before, and I'll just run through it until it can get up on the screen. So received the report and attached legal advice noting the provisions of the Maritime Labour Convention regarding seafarers' welfare centres. Note the challenges facing the Seafarers Centre regarding the resources required to provide these services and the constraints they face due to fundraising or shortfall in funding.
Yep.
Due to a shortfall in funding. Note the provisions of the Maritime Labour Convention which suggest methods of funding which include a levy on ships. Note that staff are continuing to discuss with the Seafarers Centre the options that may be available to them for seeking funding and grants. Request staff to meet with the Seafarers Centre and Littleton Port Company to explore a range of initiatives, including the possibility of a levy on shipping that could support the Seafarers Centre. In that way, we've noted everything that the Community Board considered. I don't really want to go back to a situation of resolving that we don't have any moral obligations. To me, it's not a question of morality. It's a question that the Seafarers Centre needs a resolution. The Port Company holds the key to one of the ones that is suggested under the Maritime Labour Convention, and you know, I mean, we can't direct the Port Company to do this. I took out the reference to central government, but we could talk to central government, because if this was simply required, if it was a matter of course, if every port in the country had to levy for the provision of these services, then it would be a no-brainer. Everyone would do it, and the resources would be, well, the cost would actually fall where they lie, and that is with the employers of these seafarers. Tim, Aaron, Anne.
Thank you. I totally agree. I think the moral obligation is with the employers, either the shipping companies, and if there was some way in the future that we could allow the Littleton Port Company or any port in the country to be levied for their responsibility to these sailors, would be really good. But in the short term, you know, all community boards have a discretionary fund. Have you thought of using some of that in the short term for this?
Yes, it has been used.
Okay, as being used. So is it something like dollar for dollar to the port company, or I'm not sure, because you've mentioned this figure before with regards to what was required or what was asked for.
$1 is required to run a sustainable service, or a service. We gave them $5,000.
So I realise there's a pressure here, but we've got pressures right throughout the city with so many different communities and community boards. So if it goes in a funding queue and we are stretched for funds, I think that could be a very long wait, or a very disappointing one perhaps. I don't know, I'm just saying it's not going to be the be all and end all.
I think that we're looking at every possibility in terms of funding, not just council funding, and this is another way of seeing if it can be achieved.
Yep. Sorry, Aaron and Anne, Yanni.
So my question, Leanne, is to you around number 5. You said before that we can't get the Littleton Port Company to, or we can't instruct them to, but we own them. I would have... No,
CCHL is the 100% shareholder. We have a letter of expectations. We have to go through a process if we were to do that, but we can't do that right now. So just a conversation with the Littleton Port Company at this stage may resolve the situation. So I'd rather go down the first up track first.
But yeah, because I'd rather propose an amendment or a change to 5 that asks us to ask the Littleton Port Company, since they're the ones that make all the money out of the port, between them and the boats, that they pay the bill until such time that the levy comes in, and then watch how quickly the levy gets worked through.
Yeah, the Littleton Port Company have made enormous contributions to the Seafarers Centre, especially since the earthquake. I mean, you see that...
I think was the figure we were told.
They've given more than that since the earthquakes.
To the seafarers, I don't know that they have.
The only figure I've got in front of me is the figure of $5,000, which was the grant from the port to the Seafarers Centre.
Yeah.
I mean, the port have been involved in conversations about the future of the centre, but my understanding is that the only financial contribution has been that $5,000 grant.
Right. I think the fisheries company is putting up the site for the centre to sit on.
Can we just make that, well, it says to explore a range of initiatives, including the possibility, this is just an exploration meeting, so I'd rather have a response from the port company before I go any stronger than that.
Okay, I'll be okay with that if we can put a timeline on that we'd expect some feedback on that, because that conversation could take forever. But if we could have even 2 or 3 months?
Yeah. Okay, why don't request the Deputy Mayor and staff to meet with the Seafarer Centre and Littleton Port Company and report back through the Community Board. So, I mean, it's...
by May or something?
I would imagine by the end of March. Yeah. You could have a meeting with the Community Board.
Within 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be, yeah, that would be a good start. Thank you.
Yeah, by the end of March. No, oh, yeah, well, okay, within 2 months, that's fine. Sorry, Anne.
Thank you. I'd like to support and endorse what Aaron's just said, because I think the port is a council-owned, well, you know, we have a large interest in it, and we do have an expectation that our organisations have a community focus. This place needs a champion, and I think that it just makes a lot of sense that it's the port that is that champion. And so it would be great if they could enter into some kind of sponsorship type arrangement where they are, just as they sponsor other community organisations in the area, where they could be a chief sponsor for this, which is much needed, and demonstrates our care for this community of people who are a long way from home, who are reliant on technology to connect with their families, and at the moment it's woefully inadequate. So I believe that we could really encourage a really strong champion type relationship from the port to the Seafarers organisation.
Yeah, well, that's why I put Andrew into the mix as well. So, Yanni?
Just to, I mean, I'm glad that you've put some governance support in there. I'm a little bit worried about the staff meeting with the Seafarer Centre and the Littleton Port, and I think we should be clear about governance to governance, management to management, and I would suggest that actually the Deputy Mayor should meet with the chair or the board of the port company representatives, because I concur with the point that my 2 other colleagues have made. You know, we've just been, the Maya Foundation, that the port's put heaps of money into that, significant money, and it does seem to me that there is an inherent responsibility, should be, on them to make a greater contribution, but I appreciate you want to set up a process for that to happen. I just think we need to be talking to the board of the port, not just management, over our expectations. And I was going to ask staff when the letter of expectation and draft statement of intent are coming back to council for the port, because I think it should be quite soon, shouldn't it?
Be for the next financial year, so between now and June.
But I think it's like a 1st of March or deadline, isn't there? Normally, like, we've just had one for V-Base come through finance, so I just wondered if there was also another opportunity we should take through that process to stress the importance of funding these local welfare initiatives.
Yeah, I still think the ship owners shouldn't be let off the hook. My view. Dion?
Is there any way in this that we can look at sort of saying that we actually do agree with the voluntary what is it called? The Seafarers. Yeah, that's the one. I mean, because what we're saying here is nothing really.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I want us to support it. I mean, I lived on ships for quite a long time, and you know, I went around the world and around New Zealand, and there are a lot of places that have very good facilities for people that get off ships, and that's the first thing you want to do when you get off a ship. You don't have any Wi-Fi, you don't have internet, and you want to catch up with people on, you know, that your family, your loved ones and stuff like that. So I mean, we're saying nothing really. So I'd like to actually support it, if there was support around the table for it. It doesn't mean that we're going to be immediately doing something, but I think we should actually show some sort of moral obligation actually to support this, and actually say that we're a place that welcomes people that are on ships. We welcome people that come from the airport.
Support the provision of, but not financially funding.
I mean, it is. These people are working, bringing economic benefits to the city through the trade that the port has. I just do not see a reason why we've got something in front of us that actually is looking at supporting those workers, and that we're actually not saying that we support it. We're just really saying nothing.
Yeah. I have to confess that until this paper came forward, I had never read the Maritime Labour Convention. Have you read it?
No.
No. So
I've looked into it since this report came to us, yes, now, but before that I hadn't.
But there's a link to it, and I've read it. And the thing is that it covers a whole range of things that we cannot be possibly responsible for because we are not the signatory.
But I'm not saying...
If you want to take the section that deals with welfare centres and say that we support those provisions, then that fits very well. Receive the report and attach legal advice noting the provisions of the Maritime Labour Convention regarding seafarers, welfare centres. Number 2, we support, council supports, sorry, which, I've lost the clause.
4 something, is it?
Title 4. 4.4. So we support the provision of access to shore-based welfare facilities as set out in the convention. And that covers all of the aspects of the welfare facilities, which is what you've referred to, and then carry on 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, at least we're now saying something.
Yep. Yep. All right. Was there anyone else? Aaron?
Yeah, I'm quite glad that we've seen this, and it just highlights in our community some trade practices that go on because of international laws, that you can come in and have people that are technically working in our country, even though they're employed under another nation's flag, but they are in our country, they're guests of ours in a way, and they're very welcome here and very welcome by the people of Littleton. It's been a trading port for, well, I don't know, a century and a half, coming up to 2 centuries. It's an amazing place, and some of them are fantastic people, and well, most of them are fantastic people, to be honest, not some of them. I struggle with the fact that they can be paid so poorly, and that you can trade in our country for the luxury of a lot of the world being able to buy fish that's come from our part of the world, or us to be able to buy really cheap goods that we'll then dump in a landfill in a few weeks after we've opened them and played with them. But that's the nature of international trade. But that international trade is possible because some of the people here are paid less than $600 a month, and that doesn't allow them to catch a bus to McDonald's to use their Wi-Fi. They need to use it in Littleton. And so as a good international citizen, it's great that we do support this, and that we do have a solution in 6, or a way forward that will hopefully lead us to a solution to keep these guests of our city in a fair condition while they are here, and help them communicate with their families back home, because as Dion said, and he was probably not on less than $2 an hour working for the New Zealand Navy.
$19,600.
19,600 and 3 good square meals. Luxury, Dion. But that's not the luxury that everyone that works on these boats have, and it's a sad situation for some of them. I know that some are away for months and months and don't see their children, and their only chance to see them is via Skype. So let's at least help offer them that luxury.
So we haven't got a mover and a seconder for this resolution. So you spoke to something that wasn't moved or seconded, so moved and seconded. And so, and Yanni, did you want to speak to it?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Right, and Dion.
Can I second it?
No, it's been seconded, but...
Has it been seconded?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, right, that's fine. No, I'll just say, yeah, I'm happy that, and thank you for putting number 2 in there, because I do think that we should have some sort of moral obligation to actually help facilitate, the support for these people that do come in on the ships, because, as I said before, we've got an airport and we've got great facilities there for the air hostesses, the pilots and other stuff like that. When they get off a plane after they've been on there for maybe 12, 6 hours, 2 hours, there's great facilities for them to, do that stuff. And we don't have those same sort of level of facilities for people that have been on a ship for 6 months potentially. Generally it's probably 2 or 3 weeks or something like that between port to port. So I do, as living on a ship myself, I think it's a good step forward, and I'm glad that it's been brought to our attention so that we can actually start getting some resolution towards it.
Andrew.
I think the approach that we've taken here is a good one. If we'd simply taken the staff recommendation that's in front of us, it wouldn't have seen us actively do anything. So I think the approach is right, that we deal with the port organisation first of all to see what they're able to do to better support the Seafarers Centre. Clearly we've got the letter of expectation statement of intent process as a way of engaging more formally with the port if we need to do that, and I think the 2-month time frame that we've got in our resolution here should allow that to happen within the time frame of the letter of expectation statement of intent process. So I'm pleased that we're not just taking the staff recommendation, that we're taking a more proactive approach about what we can do and what we can influence for a better outcome. What we're actually talking about here is the quality of welcome that we're offering to our seafaring visitors. And, those seafaring visitors are in an environment that, without the complications of maybe oppressive employment situations and other challenges, just being at sea is a dangerous and lonely business in itself. Being separated from your family for weeks, often months on end, in that hostile environment isn't easy for these people. So when they do have the opportunity to come ashore, it's important that we provide a good set of wraparound services and good support and good welfare to support people that inevitably have got needs when they're ashore and they're separated from their home country and their families. As a Littleton resident and someone who spent a number of years involved in businesses on the main street in Littleton, I've seen firsthand large numbers of seafarers often huddled outside our library in the wintertime in driving rain and freezing cold conditions, and all they're trying to do is to get a decent internet connection where they can actually see their children and their wives or partners on a Skype call. And I don't think that's the quality of welcome we should be offering to anybody, let alone people that are already working in a challenged environment. So I'd like to think the resolutions that we've got in front of us here, when they're implemented, will produce a good outcome for the Seafarers Centre. Once we report back in 2 months, the Community Board certainly have got a strong interest in this matter, hence the rather unusual Community Board recommendation in the beginning. I think we were just trying to look at a situation where there was something that we could do beyond saying we don't have any responsibility in this space. I think we should take what responsibility we can, at least as an influencer. And I don't doubt that if this first round of activity doesn't produce anything better, then we'll be wanting to look at other avenues we can take to get to a better outcome.
Yeah, very good. All right, I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And I'll move back to the